Hello and welcome to Independent.ie. I'm Seán O'Connor. I'm joined by Daniel McDonnell to look ahead to this weekend's Premier Division action. And Dan, before we do that, Derry's defeat in Kazakhstan in the Conference League on Thursday night. Rory Higgins was upbeat after the game, but you watched it, and what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I can understand why he was upbeat. I mean, I think going that far, the aim is to keep the tie alive, and they've done that. I think there should be probably some regrets as well that I mean they lost to one their goal and they just switched off with their sort of tracking for a minute. And Michael Duffy had a great chance, and I don't think there would have been any complaints if it finished in a 1-1 draw. And I suspect like it'd be a better pitch next week. I think both sides will probably benefit from that. I think you could see both teams a little bit uncomfortable at times when they tried to play the ball out, and they probably are more used to the pitch naturally because it's their own one. And I think they had a bit of rain, so I'm not sure if it's like that all the time, but they were going long when they could. And teams enjoy coming to Tala, so it's not just a case that there's some team that's inconvenienced by that leans off a bad pitch as an advantage. In fact, in the previous round, they won 3-1 in Basel. That was the key to their progression. So, but I think Derry, unlike the other Irish teams in Europe, I feel like Derry at least have shown up. They've played to their levels. They've been well prepared for their games, and then things will happen. You'll win some, you'll lose some, but at least they're giving themselves the best possible chance. And I suppose the weird one is we're previewing Friday's games. Derry now have to come back and play on Sunday. Look, that's the way it should be. And I actually think Derry, with the performances that they've put in Europe, have shown why they should be league contenders with their full strength squad available. They look okay. And I think they will be treating Sunday as a very even though Thursday is around the corner and that's hugely exciting, they'll have to treat Sunday as a big game too. But certainly, they've probably shown some of the teams who've gone out that their issues weren't some like massive failings in some cases with the league. It was just performing very poorly even by their own standards.
Speaking of the three League of Ireland clubs who have exited Europe in the last while, they're all in action tonight, and there's two Dublin derbies in store this evening. Dan, Shamrock Rovers and Shelburne, you'll be at that game in Tolka Park, and I think the last two meetings between the sides have open draws. So how are you looking at this one?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Shells have given Rovers plenty of problems since Damien Duff's been the manager. And yeah, I mean, two great games in Dublin tonight. I mean, I sort of lean towards this one purely because I just haven't seen Shamrock Rovers in a couple of weeks in the flesh. And I think like the title race, like, there's a massive game in Cork, but the title range hinges on how Rovers react to this bad run they're going through. And this type of game, going away to Tolka against a team that's hard to beat, doesn't concede many goals. They were still missing some of the creativity of Jack Byrne and Ferrugia. I just think this is a really good test to see where they're at heading into a sort of a little mini 2-week break the Rovers have that they wouldn't have expected. So, yeah, I mean, Trevor Clark seems to be on the way back. But I mean, I watched him against Cork on Sunday. Liam Burt was good, but I still just didn't. You just feel like it's 60% of the Rovers we've seen maybe at times in recent years. And yeah, this is just a tricky venue for them. The fans were unhappy after earlier in the season. There was a bit of a back and forth between Graham Burke and Sean Hoare and the fans. And this was at the point when Rovers weren't winning any games at all. And clearly, after all those early season struggles, they're still in control of the title race. They're still 4 points clear. But I mean, against Shells, who one or two of their English editions have done quite well. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, even though it may not have as many goal mouth chances as the other game.
And as you said, it could go one or two ways. It could be just the win that Shamrock Rovers need to kick off this title run in and kind of distance themselves from the chasing pack, or if they drop points, they'll have Bows and Pats kind of hot on their heels as well. So there's a lot of pressure riding on the hoops.
Yeah, like I mean, I think like this was the pressure is not a new thing to them. I just think like there's 10 games to go now. Sort of resorting to cliche, like every game can go to can go both ways for everyone. Like there's all of these matches have all of the games tonight there's a plot line spinning out of it. And if this team does this, what does this mean? And that's a good thing, Like Rovers, even after their break, I think they played Dundalk, Bows, and Derry in their next 3 matches. So we're probably saying the same thing about all those games. I just feel heading into the little break that they have, if they can even just grind out an ugly win here, that would send out a huge message. But if they do drop some points, it just makes everyone think. Who knows? If we can win 5-6 on the bounce, whoever it might be, then you may not be dead.
And across the Liffey, St. Pat's host Bohemians, second against third, and just a point separating the sides. It's the TV game, of course, tonight as well. It's a big game for both sides. Dan, how do you see this one going?
Yeah, this is it. I don't know how you describe this game. Is it a game between title chasers? On points, you have to argue that it is. But is it also a massive game for the top 3 finish in Europe? Well, definitely. Because I'd imagine Derry will get involved in there. I feel like Derry, if they hit their European performances, they bring it back to the league and the run-in. I can't see Derry out of the top 3. I can't see Rovers out of the top 3. So you sort of feel like, okay, between these two and then you got Dundalk and Shells on the fringes of it. But like Pats are, John Daly's talking about a title challenge, and if one of these two teams can sort of win this match, and separate themselves a bit, well, I suppose they're fully entitled to dream. I think it's funny, like Aidan Fitz, I suppose, has spoken to just leading up to the game. There's pieces, probably 2 key protagonists ultimately. Like you go, John Afolabi is the player of the month, and you've got, for Bows, and he's been a big part in their form. And then you've got Joe Redmond back in the St. Patrick's Athletic defence, and maybe if he was in Europe, available for Europe, there might have been a slightly different story, because they were just all over the place defensively, and they've got quality in other areas of the pitch. We can see that. So that battle is probably the key one. Who has a better game, Redmond or Afolabi? That could probably determine the result.
Yeah, fascinating battle between those two players at Richmond Park tonight. The other game down in Cork, it's Cork against UCD, and there's a boost for Cork. Rory Keith back in training this week. A decision will be made on whether he'll play a part tonight, but it's an absolutely must-win for Cork City, you feel?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Andy Motter spoke during the week about how they know going into every game. Like everyone playing UCD feels like it's the biggest game of their. Not the biggest game of their season, clearly it's not, but there's a pressure on them because they just have to win. In a very tight table, if you drop points to UCD, it feels like you've just lost points to everyone.
Of course, UCD beat Cork last time out as well.
Yeah, so there's danger there. Admittedly, UCD have caused more problems for teams at home than they have on their travels. Cork have beaten them previously at home. I suppose the positive slant on the Rovers Cork game, Sean Rovers Cork games, that maybe just Cork played a little bit better too. After a sort of a ropey run. So, it just goes without saying, they just have to go and win this. If they don't win this, they've probably no hope really of avoiding the relegation playoff. If they win, just psychologically, they're the results, a couple of other results that again go their way. You feel like it's just you're 1 or 2 results away from it, even though you feel like Cork still need to put in a sequence between now and the end of the season, because I think Drogheda and Sligo will pick up more points.
And just very, very briefly, Dan, Dundalk against Sligo Rovers at Oriel Park. It's a big game for Dundalk too. Another 3 points will help them keep pace with the teams above them in the race for Europe.
Yeah, Sligo Rovers, Luke McNicholas on the way out, it seems, and they're just hanging in there. From the Dundalk's perspective, yeah, it's just they need to get wins, drop points against Shelburne. You could argue Darrell Horgan back, he looked good, but he's still finding his way. Yeah, you would think it's going to have to be a home win if Dundalk are going to really push into that top 3.
Dan, that's great. Thanks for that, and we'll chat to you again soon.
Thank you.